Alrighty, hello everyone. I'm Caleb, and I'll be doing this Mana Trader series for December of 2020. The format is modern, and what I'm going to be running in this tournament for between 10 and 30 matches will be Stifle Tribal. So I love Delver decks. I think they're very fun to play. I love the tempo aspect of it, and I know tempo has like 500 different definitions now, but a good way that I've heard it explained is tempo can be aggressive, but it can also be controlling, and it has controlling aspects. So I think I really like that type of gameplay where there's some games where I can play a turn 1 Delver and it flips on turn 2, and then I just protect it for the rest of the game. And then there's other games where I need to be on the defensive game plan where I'm holding up spell snares, bolts, and all that different stuff. So Stifle is not in the deck because it's not modern legal, but that's the nickname for spells or abilities that counter spells or abilities. So the best example of this is Tail's End. It's quite a good spell right now. Aspiring Spike has been making it pretty popular on Twitch. But the reason this is so good compared to some other Stifle effects is that it can also counter legendary spells. So that includes, your Thalias, your Azusas, but it also includes any Planeswalker because they're all legendary. So your Renin 6, your Jace the Mind Sculptor, your 3 mana, 5 mana Teferi, all that kind of stuff. This counters all of it. But Tail's End can also counter a vast variety of things. So what's a triggered ability? What's an activated ability? So an activated ability is something like Grim Lavamancer, where for Grim Lavamancer, I pay a red and tap it, and then I exile 2 cards from my graveyard. So that's the activation cost. And then once the activation resolves, I get to deal 2 damage to any target. So what would happen is I would pay for it. So I would do everything before the colon, pay a red, tap it, and exile 2 cards from my graveyard. And then dealing 2 damage goes on the stack. Tail's End can counter that ability. One of the biggest activated abilities, in Modern at least, is fetch lands. So Tail's End, my opponent will pay 1 life, tap their Scalding Tarn, and sacrifice it. And then the ability goes onto the stack of them searching their library for a card. So they have paid 1 life and tapped it and sacrificed it, and then I can Tail's End counter the search ability. So they have effectively lost 1 land. Another big activated ability is Aether Vials. Planeswalker abilities are activated. Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter, all that kind of stuff. Triggered abilities are a little bit different. That covers a whole bunch of stuff. Landfall abilities, enter the battlefield abilities. So like Primeval Titan, it says Primeval Titan, when this enters the battlefield, do X. That ability goes on the stack, and I can counter it with Tail's End. Yeah. So landfall stuff, enter the battlefield abilities, stuff in Suspend, so like Rift Bolt or Greater Gargadon, I can counter those. So Tail's End is very versatile, basically. And I really like it. Nimble Obstructionist does the same thing for 3 mana. I can cycle Nimble Obstructionist and counter a target activated or triggered ability. What's nice about Nimble Obstructionist, it's always going to be a 1-for-1. I either get a 3-1 with flying, or I get to counter something. And that's pretty huge. And it actually can be a 2-for-1 because when I cycle it, I also get to draw a card. Then I'm playing, it's not a Stifle effect. I was playing Squelch in this spot, but I think I like Shadow of Doubt better. Players can't search libraries this turn, so this just gets rid of Primeval Titan triggers, fetch lands, any search ability. So, Summoner's Pact, also in Primeval Titan decks. They can't search there. It's just kind of versatile. It's only a one of, but I think it has its place, and it can also effectively counter a fetch land. So I've had this happen many times so far, where I'll play turn 1 Delver. They'll play a fetch land turn 1 and not crack it, and because they want to crack it on my end step on my turn 2. So they do that. And then in response, I'll cast Shadow of Doubt, and then they don't get a land. So I've effectively destroyed one of their lands for 2 mana, and I get to draw a card, which is pretty sweet. So other than all the stifles, it's a pretty stock blue-red Delver. I'm playing 4 Delver of Secrets. To get Delver to flip on time, I'm playing a whole bunch of spells. So I'm playing 4 Opt, 2 Spell Snare. I think Spell Snares are in a really good spot right now. Spell Pierce. People are back and forth on this. I love it. I think it's great at any point of the game, especially paired up with Remand. Grim Lavamancer as a one of. It can hit a ton of stuff, but it can also just kill your opponent by exiling stuff or just attacking for 1. It can also shrink Tarmogoyfs on the other side of the battlefield, so that's pretty huge. 4 bolts, those are amazing. 2 mana leaks, I think mana leak is great. I like Remand a little bit better, just because it lets me draw a card, and this is like the definition of a tempo card. I'm just returning something to their hand. I'm like effectively wasting their turn, and I get to draw a card. So I'm constantly drawing cards. 4 Snapcaster Mage, the best 2-drop for this deck, I think. The only sorcery speed thing that I have in the deck are my Delvers and my Grim Lavamancer. Everything else can be played at instant speed. So one of the considerations is Sprite Dragon in this spot, but I think the versatility of Snapcaster Mage is just way too high. I'm playing 4 of them. And then 3 Tails End, 1 Shadow of Doubt, and then Abrade. Some people play Flame Slash in this spot. I like Abrade because of the relevance of Stoneforge Mystic, as well as Amulet of Vigor. And Ensnaring Bridge, or the other 15 artifacts in Tron. Nimble Obstructionist, I already talked about. It's my other Stifle effect, but a 3-1 with Flash and Flying is also a great clock. I'm playing 2 Brazen Borrower. I think Brazen Borrower is amazing. It kind of fits into the same slot as Remand, because you got to think of adventure spells as 2. Like, every adventure card is effectively 2 cards. So if I use Brazen Borrower to its fullest extent, I can bounce something and play a creature. So once again, Brazen Borrower is just huge value. I'm 2 for 1-ing almost all the time. I think it's great. I'm playing 2 Force Negation in the main and 1 in the side. I think it's just kind of necessary in Modern's state right now to be able to have free counterspells, especially with things like Renin 6, 3 mana Teferi, Phyrexian Unlife in the Ad Nauseam deck, turn 1 Aether Vial when they're on the play. Aether Vial just kind of ruins my game plan. So all that kind of stuff, I think Force Negation is just kind of necessary. And I'm playing 1 Vendilion Click. It's kind of my pet card. I really enjoy it. It can also help against combo decks, against control decks. It's another 3-1 flyer. I can also flash out Vendilion Click and target myself and put a card that isn't good in the situation on the bottom of my library and draw another card. So once again, it's very versatile. It's a 2 for 1. It's great. And then I'm playing 1 Magmatic Sinkhole. I think this is one of the best cards for red that's been printed in a very long time. The ability to hit Planeswalkers is just huge, and at 5, it can kill basically any Planeswalker. You may see like Jace the Mind Sculptor being upticked because it's within bolt range. Well, Mag Sinkhole can, deal with that extra 2 points. If a 3 mana Teferi gets upticked, Magmatic Sinkhole can deal with it. 5 mana Teferi uptick deals with it. So it's great. It also can kill fairly big Tarmogoyfs, and since it does have Delve, that's great because I can look at both libraries and shrink the graveyard as I need to make Tarmogoyf smaller. So all around, it's just a great card. I don't want to play too many of them because it is 6 mana, or I have to exile 5 cards, and my library or my graveyard isn't that massive. And as for the lands, this is one of the biggest changes that I've made. This is a boil-less mana base. So I am playing 3 islands basically out of necessity with things like Field of Ruin and Assassin's Trophy and Path to Exile. I do need some amount of islands in the deck, but I'm playing all lands that do not have the island subtype, but they can tap for blue or red. So what that allows me to do is to play Boil in the sideboard, which is huge against Amulet Titan decks, green-white Reclaimer decks, control decks, obviously. Just being able to, in a control deck, being able to destroy easily over 2/3 of their lands is just amazing, while I'm maybe destroying one of my islands. And then against Amulet Titan or green-white Reclaimer, being able to destroy all of their lands if Dryad of the Elysian Grove is out. It's not only is it backbreaking, it's game-winning if that happens. So I like having the 4 mana effectively win the game in my sideboard against certain matchups. And talking about the sideboard, I have 1 Dispel. I love this card. One issue is 1-for-1 removal, especially in the form of Fatal Push, Path to Exile, and Lightning Bolt. Dispel really helps against that, maybe turn 10 or turn 11 where everybody has a whole bunch of mana. My remands and my mana leaks don't look great against a Path to Exile on turn 10, but a Dispel does, and it's a very easy 1-for-1. It saves my creature, and they used mana on their ability, but it didn't resolve, so I think that's great. Relic of Progenitus, it's great in control matchups, especially like Sultai Uro or Bant Uro. This card is also amazing in the Oops All Spells deck, Dredge, all that kind of stuff. It just deals with their graveyard and chips away at it. So I'm playing 2 of those. I'm playing Engineered Explosives instead of Entrancing Melody. I think Engineered Explosives is very good in this slot and potentially even better at the moment than Entrancing Melody. As you can see with my creature suite, I only have Snapcaster Mage in the 2-drop slot, and I only have Delver Secrets and Grim Lavamancer in the 1-drop slot. And I can't, unless there's some weird circumstance, I can't make Engineered Explosives hit 3, which is fine. Engineered Explosives is mostly for tokens, so Field of the Dead tokens, any 2-drop creatures, so think Thalia, think spirits, like most of their really good spirits are at 2, other than like Drogskull Captain and whatnot. And then also in the Titan deck, Amulet Titan, they're playing Amulet of Vigor. They're playing the Tribe Scout that you can tap and put a land onto the battlefield. They're playing the O3 that puts a land on the battlefield. Like all those things, I can just dump 1 mana into this and then pop it, and it destroys a lot of their stuff. But the biggest reason to play Engineered Explosives is for the Jund Death Shadow or the Rakdos Death Shadow deck. Both of those are running around, and 1-for-1 removal is okay against them, but they're very threat dense. And blue-red prowess as well. That I can only 1-for-1 so much, so it's nice to have Engineered Explosives to effectively board wipe them. let's say they have like 2 Monastery Swift Spear and 2 Death Shadow out. Like, Entrancing Melody is only going to deal with one of them, whereas Engineer Explosives is going to deal with all 4 of them. But what if they have Scourge of the Skyclaves out? Well, then I can put it up to 2 and pop it. So I think it's really good. I'm only playing 1 Dragon's Claw. I think my Prowess matchup is fine. I was playing a 2nd Dragon's Claw. We'll see how that goes. This list can ebb and flow throughout the Mana Traders series, so I'm just not sure. But I think 1 Dragon's Claw is fine because I have enough removal. I have enough counter spells to deal with their threats. And the nice thing is, traditional Boros Burn really isn't that prevalent right now. So it's all creature-based. Like, most of their damage is creature-based. And I have plenty of ways to deal with that. So Dragon's Claw it's still really good, but I have ways to mitigate damage, especially with my Painless mana base. And then Cleansing Wildfire, I'm playing 3 of those. It's great against Tron. It's great against Amulet Titan. I bring it in against like Merfolk and Spirits because they run Cavern of Souls, so I just try and get rid of that. I'm back and forth whether I should play 3 or 4, so we're going to stick with 3 for now. 2 Aether Gust. It's really good against Amulet Titan, really good against any form of Prowess or Gruul mid-range where they're playing like 7 Blood Moons and all that kind of stuff. I'm playing 1 Force Negation in the side for those combo matchups, for basically just the combo matchups like Ad Nauseum. I'll bring it in control matchups, mostly like 4-color Omnath, because Renin 6 is a really big problem for my deck. You'll notice all of my creatures have 1 toughness, and Renin 6 just says, I'm going to kill all of them. So he's a big problem. Force Negation is also nice against Lava Dart. It can get rid of it so they don't get 2 Prowess triggers off of it. In the really grindy matchups, I'll bring in Ral Izzet Viceroy. I really like Ral. His downtick, his -3 is so good. Once you're casting him by turn 5, or probably after turn 5, you're going to have a ton of instants and sorceries in the graveyard and in exile, so it's going to be able to deal, 8-9 damage to any creature that you need to deal damage to. Its card selection is really good, and the -8 effectively says I win the game, so I like that. And then I'm playing the 2 Boils. Those come in control matchups and Amulet Titan matchups. So yeah, that's Stifle Tribal. I'm excited to play it, and I'll see you in the first match.